Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. This episode, I'll be talking about how, if nothing else was proven this week, it is that it is officially it's the populace versus the establishment. After that, I'll be talking about how YouTube has demonetized the Epic Times, how a troll account edited Maxine Waters' comments and proved how hypocritical Democrats are in New York, how Robinhood had to get an emergency infusion of more than $1 billion from existing investors, and I'll be crushing on Tulsi Gabbard for a bit. But before we get started, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you'd like to contribute to the show, please go to notcensoredyet.com/donate, where you'll find links available where you can donate to the show. Every little bit helps as we're brand new, we're still growing, and we'd like to produce more quality, consistent content free from outside influence. So let's get started. Here's a tweet from Alex Clark. Trump supporters were right. Big tech, the Democrats, Hollywood, and the corporate elitists are all rigging the system against us. And you idiots let them all trick you into not voting for him because he likes to tweet and drink Diet Coke. And I'm going to add this part at the end. He gives you the sads, right? He just makes you sad. Every time he talks, it just hurts your feelings. And by him hurting your feelings, obviously he's a bad president. So it's either he says things that makes you upset, but he ends up doing good things while he makes you upset, or he can say all the right things while screwing you over. So what would you rather have? Would you have a really nice guy who screws you over at every turn, or would you rather have a butthole who at the end of the day, you make more money and you're more happy with where you're at in life? So let's jump over to Reuters. Facebook Inc. took down a popular Wall Street discussion group, Robinhood Stock Traders, in a move its founder said was an unjustified response to conversations that have buoyed shares in GameStop Corp and other companies. Alan Tran, a 23-year-old from Chicago who created Robinhood Stock Traders, said he woke up on Wednesday to a notification that Facebook had disabled the 157,000 member group. The notification, seen by Reuters, said without detail that the group violated policies on adult sexual exploitation. At least find a believable excuse, Facebook, right? Adult sexual exploitation on a stock traders group? Come on, guys. Try harder next time. At least do something a little more believable, yet more vague, right? Hate speech would be good because, they could say, oh, we're sticking it to the man. And, depending on the inferences you could make, if Ilhan or Omar was in that group and basically she were making her anti-Semitic statements, you could potentially say there was hate speech going on in that group. I'm pretty sure that a Discord server was taken down for Wall Street Bets because of like the 3 million members on that server, you had 4 people post something that were considered or could possibly be anti-Semitic. And it's like, oh yeah, those 4 people were representative of the 3 million people. Go F yourself, people. Come on. And especially because they looked like bot accounts. We were the first on the picking tree to be cut off because we are on Facebook, not a free platform like Reddit, said Tran, referring to the typically lighter moderation on the discussion website. Some of its group's members made tens of thousands of dollars in trades first popularized on Reddit's Wall Street's Bets forum, he said. Facebook spokeswoman Kristen Morea said this group was removed for violating our community standards unrelated to the ongoing stock frenzy. So it just so happened that all these groups were being banned on the exact same day. All these stock trading apps were limiting trades on the exact same day, while it appears that they were colluding with the hedge funds that were basically saying, don't let them buy more stock because it's driving up the price. Force them to sell. And that's why the price dipped. And as soon as basically even lawmakers were saying, what the heck are you doing? This is a free market. They have a right to spend as much money as they want on these stocks. If that stock goes up to $5,000 a share, it is their right to buy it. And it's not their fault. Well, yeah, it's definitely not their fault that hedge fund managers were shorting a stock and now they're paying that price. So basically, you're gambling when you're shorting a stock, you're gambling that that business is going to fail. And if they fail, you make more money. But what people don't know is these hedge funds, they have so much money and so much influence that they'll say, oh, we think this company is going to go under. So not only do they print that position, then they'll also go to news organizations for them to report that they believe that those companies are going to go under. That way people sell those stocks, further devaluing that stock. Following Reuters report, it had been removed. The Robinhood stock traders group was restored, said Tran, adding that Facebook did not say why. So basically, as soon as people are starting to call out BS on the adult sexual exploitation part of being banned, Facebook reinstated the group. Facebook previously suspended his group on January 7th after labeling it a dangerous organization. I don't understand how it could be considered a dangerous organization if they're just talking about stock trading, according to correspondence seen by Reuters, although the company reinstated it after he appealed to context there. Tran expressed concern that another group he formed to carry on discussions will also be taken down. So, if you haven't noticed, it is the populist versus the elite. And if this GameStop fiasco, if this GameStop Wall Street Bets thing has taught us anything, it is that once the populist left and the populist right get this partisan BS out of their systems, figure out that the establishment is the problem, not each other, and they go, hey, we have more in common than we have different. Let's partner together because together we are stronger, and basically pressure the establishment, and not through force, but through money, because money makes the world go round to these billionaires. That's the only thing they understand. And when these billionaires start losing billions of dollars, then you'll see them crying on TV. And it is delicious to see it happen. And basically, you'll see that we together have power. We give them power. The only reason the 1% have the power that they have, like those in government, is because the 99% allow them to have that power. And as long as we continue to give it to them, but once we stop believing that, that they're legitimate, if we stop believing that they're actually representing we the people, then they lose that power. And we're basically seeing that happen right now due to the GameStonk rally, because we saw the corruption just blatantly in our face. They made it to where we could not buy more stock, that we were being forced to sell the stock. So people's portfolios were being sold off on their behalf for their safety. And it's like, no. I know the risk, and I put $500 in there. Do not sell my stock. I want to see this happen, because even if I lose that $500, I don't care, because I know at the end of the day, I'm a part of something bigger than myself, and this is going to make a difference, and this is extremely important. And it's going to be interesting where this goes, because you have people like Elizabeth Warren going, oh, we need to regulate. We don't even know who these individual retail investors are. We need to figure out who they are. No. The people who need to be regulated are the hedge funds. The people who need to be regulated are the people who made it so retail investors could not buy the stock that they wish to buy. Because guess what? If it's a free market, then we should have free access to the market. Why do you need to be a billionaire to buy what you want to buy? Why can't somebody just go, well, I have $1,000. Let's watch it ride, right? And if you're willing to lose it, guess what? It is a casino, whether you like it or not. Ben Shapiro said something that, oh, Wall Street's not a casino. Bro, it is a casino. You are gambling. If you buy high and you sell low, guess what? You lost money. If you buy at the wrong time, if you make the wrong bet, you are losing money. If you make the right bet, you are making money. You are basically predicting outcomes that may or may not occur. That is gambling. You're playing statistics. You're looking at algorithms. You're looking at forecasts and odds and whatever. It is gambling, whether you like it or not. So people figured out that, hey, these people are manipulating the market, and we the people, can make them pay for making these small businesses who are struggling because of COVID. Basically, they're driving them out of business due to selfishness. We can save these businesses while also teaching them a lesson and potentially making them not continue that practice. And we've already seen one company change their position on shorting stocks. So let's jump over to Breitbart. YouTube demonetizes the Epic Times. YouTube demonetized the Epic Times and related accounts last week, said Stephen Gregory, publisher of the Epic Times. This is the latest example of big tech suppression of free speech, a step on the road to communist-style censorship. But YouTube did not identify which videos from Epic Times violated the platform's policy. So basically, they said YouTube said that the Epic Times violated a policy to be a part of the partner program, and if channels keep repeatedly violating those policies, then they're suspended from the partner program. The Epic Times is a widely read and well-established international media publication. Its properties include its flagship print newspaper, available in many major cities around the world. Competing media companies have falsely accused the paper of being far right due to its neutral to favorable coverage of President Trump and other populist politicians and political movements around the world. It has previously been censored by Facebook. Yet the newspaper's main editorial position, criticism of Communist Party of China and its growing international influence, is neither right-wing nor left-wing. So apparently, if you're anti-China, if you're anti-spread of Communist China influence throughout the world, then apparently you are right-wing, which is extremely dangerous, because what does that make you eventually if once it appears that Chinese influence has already made its way into the US? And so we know what's happening in China. What happens when those policies start to get enacted in the US? They're already saying right wing extremists, they're saying white nationalist extremists, they're saying all these things that people are national security risks. And basically, what if you're going to start criticizing China and the CCP? Does that make you a right wing extremist? This is going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm curious to find out. I have my predictions, and I hope I'm wrong. Google, which owns YouTube, has often faced criticisms for its ties to China. In 2018, following bipartisan outcry, the tech giant was forced to cancel Project Dragonfly, an ongoing project to develop a search engine aimed at the Chinese market that censored search terms that were deemed problematic to the communist government. Yeah, so basically, Google really doesn't they're not neutral in this. So if the Epic Times bashes China, basically saying these are all the bad things China is doing, Epic Times have been talking about the Uyghur camps for months, and they've been talking about influence from China for a long, long time. I don't really track everything that Epic Times does because it seems a little left field for me, but it's definitely something. If their main editorial stance is China bad, I really can't disagree with that, because they are committing genocide. It is being. I think the Biden administration has confirmed what the Trump administration said, that a genocide is occurring with the Uyghur Muslims, and I believe Trump did that as a gotcha for Biden, because if Biden were to undo that, there would be a lot of angry Americans, a lot of angry people around the world, because there is a genocide happening, or a genocide happening in China. And the only way for that to be basically addressed is for the United States to go, that is genocide. We need to address that. But if Biden were to basically pull that statement back and be like, oh, there's no genocide, nothing to see there, friends, you're going to see people around the world going, what are you talking about? How is that not a genocide? Their heads are being shaven. They're being sterilized. You have the CCP bragging about it. They're being forced to eat pork. They're being forced to drink alcohol. They're being forced to smoke cigarettes. Basically everything that's against their religion, everything that's against their culture. They're destroying their culture. They're destroying their lives. They're destroying their means for reproduction. So it is a genocide. They're trying to cleanse China from the Uyghur Muslims. Jumping over to Alex Griswold, a troll account edited Maxine Waters' comments about harassing Trump officials to apply to Andrew Cuomo, staffers, and New York state legislators are legit outraged. This is appalling and dangerous, says Carla E. Hasty. Encouraging violence must never be tolerated. Shame on whoever is behind this kind of garbage. So Cuomo Watch basically tweeted this: if you see anybody from the Cuomo administration in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them that they're not welcome anymore anywhere. Maxine Cuomo Watch. Right? So they basically took that quote from Maxine Waters, basically saying, get in those Trump officials' faces, let them know that they're not wanted around in these parts. And these responses just show the hypocrisy of those on the left. Jeffrey Denowitz, what's wrong with you? Threatening violence against duly elected representatives of the people in New York is fascism. The hatred unleashed by Trump and his gang of thugs continue to reverberate throughout the country. Enough is enough. Jennifer Rajmakar, this kind of incitement to violence against government leaders must stop, especially after the recent siege at the U.S. Capitol. We must condemn these types of threats. They danger our democracy. This is not who we are, and we can do better. Kenny Burgos, we need to stop this behavior towards elected officials, especially their staff. The siege of the Capitol empowered behavior like this and must be stopped at any moment. It creeps its head out in any fashion. Ken Zabrowski, this is dangerous, reprehensible, and has no place in any public discussion. Oh, and spare me the someone else did it too excuse. Someone else saying a variation of this doesn't change the fact that this is seeking to incite violence against a public official and their staff. They don't understand that it is a meme account. This is not for real. This is basically literally just changing out who you're talking about in the quote of Maxine Waters. Debbie Rose, really? Did we not learn anything from the Capitol insurrection? We must condemn violence and harassment in any form. Hashtag stop the violence. Hashtag mob mentality. So this is bananas. And if this meme proves nothing else, it's just the utter hypocrisy of the left. Because if it only cuts one way, you can be extremely crude. You can be crass. You can get in the face of conservatives. You can get in the face of Trump supporters. You can do whatever you want. But as soon as it affects somebody on the left, if it appears to affect somebody on the left, then it is dangerous. It is the mob mentality. We need to have one standard in this country. For this country to be united, there needs to be one standard. This rules for me and not for thee is unacceptable because all it's going to do is further divide the country. Jumping over to the New York Times, they tweeted Robinhood, the trading app, said it was raising an emergency infusion of more than $1 billion from its existing investors. The app has grappled with an extraordinarily high volume of trading this week as investors have piled into stocks like GameStop. So there could be a couple of reasons behind this. One is they screwed over a lot of investors and perhaps they pulled their money out of Robinhood because of what they did. Another thing that could have happened is a lot of people who have accounts with Robinhood, they allow instant trades once you deposit money. So usually it takes a couple of days for your funds to settle, but if you've had an account with Robinhood for a while, you can immediately use a couple $1,000s. And if that's the case, then you can basically use money that basically Robinhood doesn't have. And if they don't have the funding to clear those trades, Robinhood will find themselves in trouble, especially since Robinhood was being used for a lot of these Wall Street bets trades. But I believe they're in trouble. They showed where their position at. They wanted to democratize trading, and they obviously didn't. As soon as it affected the establishment, they wanted to back to elitism for trading. Let's jump over to Tulsi Gabbard. Don't bring the war on terror home. This is from the Libertarian Institute. On the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol shocked the nation. Now, and so often occurs in the wake of tragedy, some Washington politicians are using the opportunity to push for an expansion on their power, hoping Americans are too shell-shocked to object. A bipartisan group in Congress has introduced the so-called Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2021. It would expand the surveillance and police powers of the national security state in the name of combating dangerous extremism. America must be vigilant to combat those radicalized to violence, and the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act gives our government the tools to identify, monitor, and thwart their illegal activities. Congressman Brad Schneider, one of the bill's lead sponsors, said, "Combating the threat of domestic terrorism and white supremacy is not a Democratic or Republican issue, not left versus right or urban versus rural. Domestic terrorism is an American issue, a serious threat that we can and must address together." So I'm going to stop right there. If you remember the video I did about the secular Democrats and the Democrat Free Thought Caucus, they were basically saying that the religious right, that just the religious institutions gave frequent cover to white supremacy. So my problem with all of this stuff, again, I'm not a religious individual. But the problem with all this stuff, you keep expanding what white supremacy is. You keep expanding the bubble of what this threat is. Eventually, everybody is going to be considered a threat to the establishment, and everybody's going to be monitored. Because once everybody on the right finds themselves in a re-education camp, the biggest threat to the establishment is then going to be the progressives. And the only people on the left speaking out right now are actually the progressives, because I believe they have figured out that they don't want to be the useful idiots. They don't want to be tossed aside. They want to make sure that they stay safe, because I believe they may be smart enough to understand that once those on the right are eliminated, the establishment is going to turn its gaze upon them and destroy them next, because they're the loud, useful idiots that helped manage to get them into power. They helped with their beautiful social media campaigns, help get Democrats elected, help get young people interested into Democratic lawmakers. And once the populist right is destroyed, the populist left is going to be destroyed, because it is a threat to the establishment, and they know it, so they are pushing back against it. The bill is drawing backlash. We all surely agree that true domestic terrorism is reprehensible, but many progressive lawmakers are speaking out against the hasty push to expand government power and warning of the threat it possesses to civil liberties. They warn these powers will undoubtedly be used against many more people and disfavored groups than just violent radicals like those who attacked the Capitol. For former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, a progressive Democrat, called this push so dangerous in a Fox News interview. We don't have to guess about where this goes or where it ends, Gabbard continues, when you have people like former CIA Director John Brennan openly talking about how he's spoken with appointees and nominees in the Biden administration who are starting to look across our country for these type of movements that, in his words, make up this unholy alliance of religious extremists, racist bigots, and even libertarians. That's the thing that bothers me the most, because why are you pegging a political group as an unholy alliance, right? A political ideology. It would be like Republicans saying we need to monitor progressive Democrats because we believe they are a national security threat, and eventually we're going to have to detain them if we believe that they are extremists. So it's bananas what's going on, friends. So when you look at their process as they're building this profile of a potential extremist, what are we talking about? Are we talking about evangelical Christians, somebody who is pro-life, libertarians, people who attended a Trump rally? This would lead to a very dangerous undermining of our civil liberties and a targeting of almost half the country, Gabbard concluded. The concern is that government powers authorized ostensibly for use against domestic terrorists would wind up being wielded against much broader swaths of society. A letter signed by 10 progressive House Democrats, including Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Ro Khanna, calls on leadership to reject reactionary demands to further erode the rights and liberties of American people. So again, I think it's the populist left that understands that once the populist right is destroyed, they are going to be the target, because then they're going to be the easy targets. They're going to be the loud voices. They're going to be the ones that can easily stand up against the establishment. Because right now, it appears the populist right is standing against the populist. Once they're destroyed, it's going to be the populist left who's going to be fighting against the establishment. They'll be destroyed, and all that'll be left is the establishment. So I believe those on the populist left are realizing what's occurring, and they are scared, because they're basically probably thinking, once they're out of the picture, as much as we love to see those Trumpers out of the picture, as much as we see those who disagree with us out of the picture, as soon as they're gone, it's going to be us with our head in the guillotine, and this is going to be dangerous. We are not going to like where this is going, and this is good that they're actually standing up for the rights of Americans. I'm honestly kind of surprised that this is happening. History is littered with examples of initiatives sold as being necessary to fight extremism that quickly devolve into tools used for mass violation of the human and civil rights of the American people, the letter warns. Why progressive critics are right to oppose the new domestic terrorism policy. There is simply no need to expand the government's police powers, according to New York University's law school. Existing statutes have long provided substantial authority for the federal government to investigate and prosecute acts of domestic terrorism. Indeed, at least 150 people have been charged with crimes related to the attack on the Capitol. The government already has vast powers to surveil, pursue, and prosecute Americans who commit crimes or plot violence. After all, law enforcement already knew from intelligence intelligence that the planned demonstration at the Capitol could turn violent. Their failure to adequately prepare for it was not due to a lack of information or authority. It was due to a lack of basically competence. You had Muriel Bowser basically saying, "Oh, we have this. Don't worry about it. We don't need more help from federal agents. Oh, we got this." And you have people again posting memes of, "Oh, during Black Lives Matter protests, during the Capitol riots, look at the police response difference." And yeah, exactly. I agree. Why weren't there more people? Why isn't Muriel Bowser being held to account for her incompetencies? As soon as the mayor of Washington, D.C. said, "We have this, we are fully prepared, we understand how to deal with demonstrations such as this," and things hit the fan, she should be held to account because it was her decision to deny access to federal forces without her prior approval. Some might wonder, well, how could it hurt to give them more tools? Better safe than sorry, right? This is an understandable impulse, but deeply naive as a permanent conclusion. There's good reason to think that domestic terrorism government powers would wind up targeting many Americans because we've seen the same dynamic play out before, time and time again. Passed in the wake of the tragic 9/11 terrorist attack, the Patriot Act gave the federal government enormous surveillance powers. For example, it authorized sneak and peek searches, allowing government officials to search someone's home or office, take pictures, and even sometimes confiscate property, yet only inform them after the fact. According to the ACLU, 76% of sneak and peek searches have occurred in drug enforcement cases, with less than 1% actually happening in terrorism related cases. So you see here, so the Patriot Act was used to fight terrorism, but actually the government is using it for drug cases outside the scope of what it was originally designed for. So you're going to have things for domestic terrorism, and then eventually they're going to be going for what? Tax evasion. They're going to be going for all these other things. And eventually, if what my biggest thing with what is considered domestic terrorism, what's considered extremism, if you're against the establishment, if you're against the sitting politicians, if you're an opposing party, would that automatically make you an extremist? Would that automatically make you a domestic terrorist because you wish to see change in the government? I'm interested to see what sort of mental gymnastics these intelligence agencies are going to use. The Patriot Act also created a new pathway for FBI agents to access Americans' personal information, such as phone records, computer records, credit history, and banking information. Per the ACLU, of the 192,000 such record examinations the FBI made from 2003 to 2006, only one led to a terrorism conviction. All of this doesn't even touch on the way the post-Patriot Act mass surveillance caught up millions of innocent Americans, as exposed by National Security Agency whistleblower Edward Snowden. There's plenty of precedent that suggests these abuses can be explicitly political too. Government agencies, including the FBI and the Department of Defense, have conducted their own spying on innocent and law-abiding Americans. The ACLU reports, through the Freedom of Information Act, the ACLU learned that the FBI has consistently monitoring peaceful groups such as Quakers, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, Greenpeace, the Arab American Anti-Defamation Committee, and indeed the ACLU itself. We might give the government vast new powers to fight domestic terrorism, but it's inevitable that these same powers will eventually be used against millions of Americans who have nothing to do with such extremism. The big picture: we must resist rushing through bad ideas amid emergencies. So basically, they're saying, hey guys, pump the brakes. We understand tensions are high, adrenaline's flowing, but stop, take a breather. We need to figure out what the best plan is. Because if you just hastily pass a bill when you're frizzled, right? When you're frazzled, when you're scared, you're not going to make a rational decision. Fear kills, friends. There's a lesson here that extends beyond the specific debate over surveillance powers and the war on terror. In times of crisis and emergency, enterprising politicians will always seek to exploit the situation to expand their own power. Too often, scared citizens go along with these power grabs. This is the danger. Economist Robert Higgs identified in his seminal work *Crisis and Leviathan* as the ratchet effect. Higgs showed how throughout history, crises have been used to excuse government power grabs. After each crisis, the government lets go of some of the power, but never all of it. As a result, the federal government's power, the Leviathan, has ratcheted up crisis after crisis throughout the last 100 years. Progressives, conservatives, and libertarians alike must stand firm against the leftist or the latest push to infringe on civil liberties in the name of combining domestic terror or in the name of combating domestic terror. Otherwise, sweeping powers granted amid crisis will undoubtedly be used against millions of Americans who did nothing wrong on January 6th. So the I guess the upshot is going to be they're going to pass this law, or if they pass this law, you're going to find people who are in California who might potentially be, for PETA, finding themselves to be even more investigated as a potential domestic terrorist group because of the beef lobby thinking that they're a threat to their industry. So anything that the establishment sees as a threat to the establishment could be pegged as a domestic terror group, and that is scary, friends, because anything can happen at that point. Are you going to be able to detain these people using that New York State bill? If you can determine that these ideologies are contagious and they're a public safety threat, can you detain them for 60 days at a time without court intervention? Can you detain them indefinitely, kind of like in places like Guantanamo, without detention if they're considered a terrorist? We already had Obama assassinate extrajudicially American quote unquote terrorists overseas, American teenagers overseas. We need to figure out what America is capable of during these times. And what's scary is these people that are proposing this legislation have done some fairly unethical, not even fairly, extremely unethical things overseas. What if they're willing to do that over there? And when they're asked about it, they just said, well, maybe that 16-year-old kid should have had better parents. Oh, so they say that so callously about a 16-year-old American that they drone striked in a coffee shop in Yemen, a country we're not even at war with, in a civilian coffee shop, killing Lord knows how many people. And if they're willing to do that, if they're willing to stir up that controversy in Yemen, right? What are they willing to do to people that they don't like here in the United States? Yeah, they won't be drone striking people in the US, but if they start just rounding people up in the middle of the night, well, what's going to happen then? Are people going to speak out? Are other countries going to come to the defense of the populace? Or are they going to be scared of the United States government? Because the US will just point their gun at that country and said, what were you saying? Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. Why don't you go sit down and shut up and we'll worry about our problem over here? Because unfortunately, that's the way the US does business. So, friends, I'm going to do some more research. I'll drop another episode later today. Until then, I'll see y'all later. Bye.